Closing costs, something that whether you are a seller or a buyer, it's something that you're going to really want to wrap your head around. Closing costs. Here's something to think about. Many times I meet with sellers, especially older sellers who are very old school in their way of thinking. Many times they have only been in one house their whole life, and they paid their own closing costs. Closing costs are something that you cannot get away from paying, but one thing that sellers say every once in a while, I hear a seller say, I am not paying closing costs. If the buyer can't pay closing costs, they shouldn't be buying a home. And listen, that's very debatable. So debatable, but I'll tell you, since I got into real estate 6.5 years ago, I would guesstimate that probably at least 80% of closing costs, a portion of it, sometimes even 100% of it, is paid by the sellers. And it's not something that comes out of pocket. That is a huge misconception that some sellers have. It is taken off the sale price. So closing costs, I've seen them as low as about $5,200 to as high as over $12,000. What are closing costs, and who really is responsible for the closing costs? Closing costs are the costs that are accrued during the purchase of a home, beginning with the application fee, the appraisal price, the lender fees, the attorney fees, all of those costs and fees that are lumped into one thing called closing costs. And so I have sold many homes to buyers who have great credit, make underneath the threshold to purchase a home, and do not need a penny at closing because I have negotiated with sellers to pay all of their closing costs. There are many buyers out there who have amazing credit but have nothing to put down. And believe it or not, you can buy a home with no money. If you have decent credit, it doesn't even have to be great credit. If you have decent credit and you make under a certain amount of money per year, you could qualify for 100% financing, which means if the seller agrees to pay all of your closing costs, you can show up at the closing table with nothing. Closing cost. I've been in real estate 6.5 years, and it has just been very commonplace that lots of times sellers pay the closing costs. Now, sometimes it's because it's a full price offer. Sometimes it's because the closing costs are added to the sale price, which if this closing costs are added to the sale price, the sellers really are getting the exact dollar amount that they asked for because it's added to the price. The only caveat there is that the home must appraise. So for example, if a home is listed for $200,000, and let's just guesstimate that the closing costs are $7,200, that means the house would have to appraise for $7,200 over the sale price, right? If it doesn't appraise, then you're kind of back to square one and back to negotiating, which are all exactly good reasons of why, as a buyer and or a seller, you should always hire a real estate agent who you know, like, and trust, and who you know closes lots of transactions, because that is something that you, as the buyer or the seller, should not have to negotiate. That's something that your real estate agent should be able to do for you. So keep this in mind. As a seller, you don't want to ever make an absolute decision up front. You want to hire a real estate agent who you know, like, and trust, someone that you know closes lots and lots of transactions, and someone that can explain to you how it works. And so if your house is listed for, let's say, $250,000, and you get a full price offer, but the buyers need $8,000 in closing costs, and that's the only way they can buy your home, you would be insane to pass up that deal, because it's a full price offer minus $8,000, right? So just be leery as a seller of getting something in your head without following the guidance of a real estate agent that closes lots and lots and lots of deals. And make sure to ask all those hard questions before you decide on something. So keep in mind, as a seller, many times buyers have amazing credit, but just do not have a lot of money in the bank. They absolutely can buy your home, but they probably will need some help with closing costs. Probably less than 5% of the 430 plus transactions I have closed in the last 6 years have not helped with closing costs, right? So remember, closing costs are all of those things that roll into a ball: your appraisal, your loan processing fees, all of your lender fees, and your attorney fees, all roll into one ball. That's your closing costs, right? And sellers absolutely can help pay buyers' closing costs, and most of the time they do. So if you're looking to buy and you have amazing credit, or listen, even just good credit. I've seen people buy homes, some actually with pitiful credit. If you're looking to buy but you just don't have a huge down payment, which means you don't also have the closing costs plus the down payment, you can still buy. If your credit is not that great, you will hear lots of people say, I qualify for an FHA loan. Couple of things that happens with that. If your credit's not that great, or if you have a high debt to income ratio, then you're probably going to qualify for an FHA loan, which means you need 3.5% down. So 3.5 times whatever the agreed upon sale price is. Now, if the sellers do not agree to pay the closing costs, you're paying the 3.5% down if you're FHA, if you're getting an FHA loan, plus your closing costs. So that's why it's hugely important that you're working with a real estate agent who can guide you in all those processes and help you if you need closing cost assistance at all. There are so many different avenues to help you. If you're thinking about buying or selling and you have lots of questions, remember there are no stupid questions at all when it comes to real estate. Probably 95% of the stuff that I do videos about, I had no clue about before I got into real estate. So there are no stupid questions. Y'all have an amazing Tuesday, an amazing week. And if you are thinking about buying or selling, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Y'all have a great day. Take care.